It's a Minimalist Monday edition of Optimal Finance Daily, episode 216, The Stories of Generosity We Ought to Champion, by Joshua Becker of BecomingMinimalist.com. And I'm your host, Dan, and I'm here every Monday through Friday reading you some of the best personal finance blogs on the planet. Today's post comes from Joshua Becker of BecomingMinimalist.com, and if you have any requests for us, any topic requests, come visit us at oldpodcast.com and share those with us. I hope everybody had a great holiday weekend, or if you have a long weekend and maybe have the day off today, hopefully you're enjoying it. Today's post is perfect for the holiday season, and that's the only preview I'm going to give you, so let's hear the post as we optimize your life. The Stories of Generosity We Ought to Champion, by Joshua Becker of BecomingMinimalist.com. Recently, Mark Zuckerberg publicly announced his decision to give away 99% of his Facebook shares to charity. His decision aligns him with several other significantly wealthy individuals who have decided to do the same: Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, Richard Branson, Michael Bloomberg, Ted Turner, and others. And their decision aligns them with countless wealthy individuals who have done similar things in the past. Quote, "A man who dies rich dies disgraced," end quote. That's what Andrew Carnegie once said while giving away 90% of his personal fortune, almost $14 billion in today's dollars. I think these stories are important, and I'm glad they make national headlines. Some will try to discredit them or argue ulterior motives, but I don't care. The more examples of generosity around us, the better. I will admit, however, there is one problem with these headline stories. They are almost completely unrelatable. When most people read about billionaires giving away money, the first reaction is typically, well, that's easy for them to say. If I had that kind of money, I'd be generous too. And to an extent, they're right. When you begin talking about net worth in the billions of dollars, things seem to function a bit differently. For example, it was Neil deGrasse Tyson who first conjectured that, comparatively speaking, Bill Gates would have to stumble across $45,000 on the ground to discover the same amount in relation to his net worth that you or I would discover if we found a quarter. Of course, mathematics and emotions can be very different. Just because somebody has a vast amount of wealth, generosity does not necessarily come easy. In fact, some studies would seem to indicate that the more money we own, the more difficult it is to give away. But nevertheless, that's easy for him to say is still the most common reaction to news stories similar to the one like Mark Zuckerberg's. As a result, even though those stories are shared widely, they often leave us unchanged. How many people do you know who went out and made a donation to charity after reading Mark Zuckerberg was giving away 99% of his wealth? Probably the same number as me, 0. In other words, Mark's story actually does very little to inspire generosity among a society. But I think this might change if we start championing different stories. For the past several years, I have been traveling this country speaking on the benefits of owning less, and I've met some amazing people along the way. Recently, I'm being asked more and more often to speak about our new nonprofit organization, The Hope Effect, and whenever I do, something amazing happens. People begin sharing with me their personal stories of generous living. People are quick to open up about the charities they passionately support. They share with me the experiences they've had volunteering at various organizations here and abroad. Many will come up to me afterwards and explain how and why they chose nonprofit work as their career. It is encouraging, it is amazing, and it is inspiring. In fact, during an interview a few weeks back, I was asked, "What has been the greatest lesson you have learned starting a nonprofit?" Among the dozens of ideas that came to my mind, I answered with this one. By far, the greatest thing I have learned over the past year is that there are generous, giving people everywhere you look. I've met so many people who are passionately committed to the care of orphans and other important causes. I almost can't believe it. Everywhere I go, I meet people making sacrifices so they can live passionately generous lives. Unfortunately, nobody's talking about them. At least they aren't making national headlines. And I know why. Their stories don't convert to metrics like Mark Zuckerberg's story. A column about the adoptive mother in Minneapolis who dedicates 2 evenings a month serving on a nonprofit board, placing orphans in loving homes, doesn't sell many newspapers. The full-time blogger in Nashville who fathers a family of 3 and makes a $5,000 donation to a cause he believes in doesn't trend on Twitter. The middle-class family who gives away 10% of their income every week to an organization they trust doesn't drive much internet traffic. But these are the stories that need to be told, because these are the stories we can see ourselves in. These are the people with whom we can relate, and these are the people that can inspire us the most. They have sacrificed in order to have time and money to give, and their stories challenge us to do the same. Unfortunately, The stories we need to hear are often the hardest to find. I think we should try to change that. During this season of giving, I think it is appropriate for us to recognize the people in our lives that have inspired generosity in us. You just listened to the post titled "The Stories of Generosity We Ought to Champion" by Joshua Becker of BecomingMinimalist.com. And that is a great message for this holiday season and to start off our week. And really quick before we go, just a reminder that we have added a fourth podcast, a brand new one, to our little network. It is Optimal Startup Daily, which features blogs from very successful entrepreneurs, some of which you hear on this show. So definitely check it out, and please do subscribe. We'd love for you to hear that show as well. And that's it for episode 216 of Optimal Finance Daily. Now tomorrow, we're going to hear a tip about cell phones from our friend Ramit Sethi. So stay tuned for that on Tuesday, where your optimal life awaits.
Hello, Life Optimizer. This is Justin Malik, creator and producer of this podcast, but also Optimal Living Daily, the show where I read to you from even more blogs covering finance, productivity, minimalism, personal development, and more from incredible bloggers like Derek Sivers, Zen Habits, Mark and Angel, The Minimalists, and all the ones you hear on this show too. So if you enjoyed today's episode and like taking amazing blogs on the go, come on over to Optimal Living Daily and subscribe to that one too. And together, we'll start optimizing your life.
You've been listening to Optimal Finance Daily. Be sure to hit the subscribe button to stay up to date on each new episode and head to oldpodcast.com. That's OLDpodcast.com for a free gift as well as more actionable tips and resources to help you maximize your potential. Thanks for joining us, and remember, your optimal life awaits.